And welcome back to my channel. So people love lighthouses for so many reasons, and a lot of them are kind of obvious. They represent stability and safety and are often placed along beautiful stretches of land on absolutely gorgeous water. You may not realize that with more than 115 lighthouses along the Great Lakes, Michigan boasts the most lighthouses of any U.S. state. Two of my favorite lighthouses are in Mackinac City, and you can actually read about them both in my book, Beyond the Light. Each has a ton of history, but today I'm going to focus on the lighthouse that's not as well known, McGulpin Point Lighthouse. Let's learn more about it. The McGulpin Point Light, a true lighthouse with a light tower and attached lighthouse keepers' living quarters, was completed by the United States Lighthouse Board in 1869 at a cost of $20,000. They had actually approved of it earlier in that decade, but work was halted because of the American Civil War. The lighthouse operated during the Great Lakes navigational seasons from 1869 until 1906. James Davenport was the longest serving lighthouse keeper at this light, and he served for 27 years there. He had worked on schooners until he married Madeline Leslie on April 18, 1870, on Mackinac Island. The couple moved to Mackinac City, and James acquired the job as first assistant keeper to the Waugoshance Shoal Lighthouse out in the Straits. Since the offshore lighthouses only accommodated men, Madeline and their young family remained in the city. 3 years later, James was promoted to keeper at Little Sable Light, which would accommodate the entire family. Then, in 1879, James swapped jobs with the keeper at McGulpin Point to be closer to the extended family. They bought a lot in Mackinac City near the school as they had a growing family of their own. During the winter months, James had to request permission to move into Mackinac City, where he worked as a carpenter and cabinet maker. Many times, he actually used wood that had been washed ashore from shipwrecks in the Straits. In the summer, the entire family would move to the lighthouse. Lighthouse keeping could be a tedious job, and lightkeepers and their families always worried about a surprise inspection from the lighthouse service. Even the slightest mess could cause the family to lose the job. Davenport's life was not without challenges and heartache as well. Madeline and a newborn daughter died during childbirth in 1891, leaving James with their 8 children between the ages of 20 and 1. There is so much evidence that James loved his children because he actually used his annual salary to buy toys for the 5 girls and 3 boys who lived with him. He also gardened, maintained an orchard, raised pigs, and hunted to feed the family. He was known for being very focused on maintaining the well-being of his children through access to both food and play. Davenport was a thorough lightkeeper, and his experiences reflect how tough life was for lighthouse keepers in remote locations around the Great Lakes. His meticulous notes include the grueling duties that included climbing the many steps to tend the light, assisting ships in trouble, carrying heavy loads, and shoveling coal. The work required round-the-clock attention and a military-like routine, and James appears to have taken that job quite seriously. He even made weekly trips through the snow to the lighthouse to report on its condition to the district inspector in Milwaukee. Letters also show that he may have played a critical role in the opening of navigation every spring by reporting weekly and sometimes even more frequently on the ice conditions in the Straits. Because Davenport was the only Straits keeper to submit such frequent reports, it would appear that the inspector used these reports to gain an understanding as to when navigation would be open throughout the lakes. December 5th, 1893 was a particularly eventful one at McGulpin Point when the wooden propeller Waldo A. Avery, which was traveling from Chicago to Buffalo with a load of corn, caught fire while passing through the Straits. By the time the vessel was off McGulpin Point, the fire was raging so badly that in order to save his crew, the captain steered the vessel toward the lighthouse at full steam. James had left the station for Mackinac City earlier in the day, and he had left his children alone at the station. They were accustomed to lighthouse life, and the children were a terribly resourceful group. When they saw the issues on the water, they made preparation for the care of the survivors. You can only imagine the fear in the children's hearts as they saw those crew members literally fighting for their lives on the approaching vessel. Back in town, James was alerted to what was going on at the lighthouse, so he rushed back to the station with a number of Mackinac City residents. With the vessel's lifeboat burned and unusable, numerous trips to the burning and beached vessel were made with the station's small skiff. They went back and forth until all 17 crew members had been brought to safety on the shore. The Avery's insurance for the season had expired the previous day, and while the vessel was declared a complete loss at the time, the hull was recovered in 1894 and the vessel rebuilt, and it continued to ply the lakes until she was abandoned in 1923. James Davenport continued to maintain the lighthouse until it was deactivated and privatized in 1906. The Lighthouse Board decided that the nearby Old Mackinac Point Light was performing an adequate job of marking the Straits of Mackinac. At some point after deactivation, McGulpin Point's tower lantern room was removed, and the building passed into private ownership and then entered service as a private residence. In June of 2008, the governing board of Emmett County voted to purchase the McGulpin Point Lighthouse, as well as 11.5 acres of surrounding lakefront property. This included 336 feet of Lake Michigan footage. They began building up the lighthouse and promoted it as a new historic resource of the Straits of Mackinac region, and they'd made a lot of cool additions to it as well. With the assistance of the Great Lakes Lighthouse Keepers Association, as well as private donors, Emmett County authorities had the lantern room rebuilt so that McGulpin Point Lighthouse could resume its function as a lighthouse. In April of 2009, a replica lantern room, which was fabricated by Moran Ironworks in Onaway, Michigan, was placed atop the light, and a lantern was erected in the lantern room. You can still visit McGulpin Point Lighthouse today and can even stay the night with their overnight accommodations at the McGulpin Point Cottage on the grounds. There is a lot of cool signage to see as you walk around to learn more about the history, and you can also take a nice walk down to the lakeshore and see even more historic sites, including Michigan's version of Plymouth Rock. I hope you have a chance to visit this lighthouse at some point. And if you like lighthouses, let me know what you do like about them in the comments below. I'd also greatly appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.